Castro. We are
Hello.
out here. What's going on, gal?
No te que lo que.
so I want to point out for those of you, so for everybody who doesn't know you, obviously outside of the industry, I want to point out that when I first met you, I almost like, before knowing anything about you, I almost knew that you were like a very important figure in the dance industry. Really, because I met you later. Like, I met you late. Like, for me, in terms of when we first crossed paths and whatnot. However, there was like this level of respect that people had around us
hmm
towards you, that I was like, oh, she must be somebody over here. She must be somebody out here. No, and I wanted to point that out because I think those are some of the things that are like very very important to see in people, especially when like you're new to a space. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
Um, and yeah, like you're very important in this industry. You've been out here. We're not gonna disclose how many years. However, you've been in the game. And you definitely know the ins and outs of the game and whatnot. You've worked with the best of the best and so on and so forth. So I appreciate having you on for sure.
I appreciate you, Samuel.
um, so one of the going off of what I was just saying, what's the importance of etiquette to you?
Well, when you speak of etiquette, like in what sense? In the sense of like class etiquette or just professionalism or just career wise? Like,
So
hmm
career wise, first off, right,
yeah.
and second off, as a woman in the industry,
Mm.
because I feel that, and again, this goes off of like what I was just explaining.
Yeah.
It's not all the time that you see women in this industry in particular to be held at a certain standard,
Mm.
you know and
Yeah.
there must be a reason from your end
Yeah.
that people around you, no matter what gender it is, choose to
Yeah.
respect you you know
Yeah, I think you know what? No, not that I think I know. I think for me in starting in this industry a while back, before AIDS, there were any agents before and I'm talking about in New York particularly, but I came into this industry having a very clear understanding of who I was as a person.
Hmm.
In the sense of like, you know, a lot of times when you meet people in this industry, male or female, or however you identify, sometimes people don't have a very clear understanding of who they are, like their negotiables and non negotiables. And although I was very, new, you know, when I first started, I didn't really understand the business side of it, obviously. And I don't think anybody ever does, but I was smart enough to understand and follow lead in the sense of particularly the women that I was working with and started to meet in this industry. I was very lucky and blessed to be mentored by so many amazing dancers, mostly women at the time, that kind of took me under their wing. And I took heed and I listened. So for me, it was almost like a thing of I'm gonna do what they're doing. It feels right to me. I also had a very clear understanding of like just what I was willing to do and what I was not willing to do
Mm-hmm.
creatively, right? Uh I think as a woman in this business, I when you, and I'm speaking particularly when you are when you're dancing for artists, male artists, you're in this world camp, you go from camp to camp to camp to camp. I think for me, I knew that I didn't need to do certain things to get to certain places
Mm-hmm.
in my career, because I knew that if I did anything that didn't sit right with my spirit, I would regret it.
Yeah.
So it's not like, you know, I knew what I was doing. I constantly checked in with what my spirit was telling me. At the end of the day, we all know what's right and what's wrong, and we all know what is going to sit well with you. And I never wanted to regret any of my decisions or choices. Now, does that mean that I didn't make mistakes? Yeah, I think in the sense of, uh, my characteristics, I'm very loyal to a fault. Um, I'm a hard worker. And sometimes that loyalty didn't get me to where I wanted to be quick enough.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
very loyal to certain people that weren't loyal to me. But within that, I learned really big lessons. So I think to answer your question, it was a matter of whenever I was on a job, yeah. Um, it was more this thing of what am I how far am I willing to go? What is my like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And how do I get to where I need to get to without feeling as if I'm selling my soul?
Right.
I don't know if that makes sense. Hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, no, yeah, of course. You answered it very clearly. It seems, and just to tell you what I heard, your spirit was much more important than the monetary, the money
Yeah.
that was coming in. The
Yeah.
the self respect was much more important than uh being part of a camp.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. No,
Yes.
I think that I think those are like really really big things to take away because um it's very easy and I came into the scene a little later, so by the time I came in, I was just like, I knew what to say "fuck out of here" with, and I knew, and I knew what to be like. All right, no, I'm super down for this, And a lot of times, it really didn't have to do. It really didn't have to do with money. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of times, it was like, I saw opportunities in things, whether those things were again monetary or not, like I just saw opportunities in certain things. So um but going back, um damn it, what the fuck was my favorite thought? I just
Wait,
lost
Samuel,
it.
can you still hear me? Because my AirPods are about to die.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Should I take them off
uh
or leave them on until?
what you can do is take one of them off and just put them on the charger.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
And you can still hear me?
Mm-hmm.
You can
Yep,
still hear me now?
yep.
Okay.
And then when that one dies, just switch it. Nah, so yeah, like I came into the scene already, knowing what to and what not to do,
Yeah.
and I think you touched on a very important thing is like knowing who you are, knowing who you were and not necessarily um depending on these life experiences that you were experiencing in the industry to mold your principles, you know?
Yes. And you know what? I've never heard anybody say it that way, which is actually, it's perfectly said, Samuel. Like, you know, I've seen so many people, male and female, get into this industry without having a very clear understanding of who they are, not even as an artist, but just as a human being, right?
Right.
And get lost and then either get extremely disappointed when things don't go their way, um, or, just end up going down a path that it's almost like I knew that at the end of the day, I needed to look at myself in the mirror and be like, all right, now that's not to say I don't want people to get confused with, there's something that you said earlier, which was opportunity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Opportunity. For me, I understood that there were going to be certain sacrifices for the opportunities that I wanted to be
Right.
a part of, right? I understand. I'm also very clear on, I'm very big on the process. And knowing that I knew that I had to go through certain things in order to really understand one, what I was getting into, two, how I was going to grow, three, networking. You know, my whole thing is when I first started doing this, I didn't even know I could make money.
Right.
Honestly, I didn't know I could make money. I came in because I wanted to dance. And as naive as that sounds, it's like I feel like if I were to come into the business now, I know I'm gonna come into a business knowing that I could make money.
Right. Right.
But when I started dancing for the New York Knicks, and I started, that's kind of the community that helped me, right? I started networking, and from there, and this was before agencies. This is like auditions were happening word of mouth,
Yeah.
right? So I was able to work with Tina Landon, Hi Hat, Jamie King, all these Marguerite Derricks, all these people, and this was through word of mouth. This
Yeah.
was before the agency. So my community, the dancers that surrounded me, that mentored me, really took me under their wing. And I think for me that was a blessing because I wasn't dependent on an agent. I understood how to hustle and not, what is it that I'm trying to say? I started to understand the hustle from a very like uh almost like a fundamental uh level.
Yeah. And I
Like I
think
didn't
and I,
come in, yeah.
yeah, and I like just to cut you off real quick. I think the culture of New York was very much so hustle and bustle, especially at that
Absolutely.
time. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, listen, we needed each other. Like, if I knew about an audition, I would call you, you would call so and so. Like we needed each other because to be like stingy or not tell other people, you cut yourself off from the community.
Yep.
So regardless whether I booked it or you booked it or we all booked it, either way, we needed each other in order to eat, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Mm-hmm.
I I understood very quickly not to be shady, not and that's not even in my nature anyway. Um, Not to be shady, to be intentional, to be inclusive, to be smart, um, just to make the best decision I could. Not, Samuel, not every decision I made was great.
Listen.
Like, you know what I mean? Not every decision I made was great. However, ever through that, still look at myself in the mirror
Yeah.
and be like, all right, Jess, what's the lesson learned here? I've never put myself in a position where, I just felt just horrible about whatever it is that was, I didn't ever feel like I was selling myself short. I actually got fired from a couple, or quote unquote, they went in a new direction.
Yeah, yeah. That's how they let you go softly.
They
We changed the
decided to go in a
creative.
new, yes, they decided to go in a new direction because I, without going into detail, wasn't willing to do things with the artist or just things like that. Things that as women, and I'm sure men go through this too in the industry, but more so as a woman in this industry. I remember being in camps and the artist would call my hotel room. This is not to tell my age, but before a cell phone situation.
Sorry, you look
And
good, girl. It's all good.
thank you, thank you. Well, I would get, 3, 4 in the morning. The artist will call me because they wanted to hang out or their entourage wanted to hang out. And I was like, absolutely not. And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden, the direction changed on the gig. And that
Hmm.
happens quite a few times, you know? And I know that sometimes the idea for many dancers, the idea of wanting to be in, of wanting to fit in, sometimes blinds your decision making.
Yep.
And for me,
Yep.
I was always very clear on that. I
Yeah.
was always because I wanted to be respected. I wanted to be respected. And I knew that as big as this industry was, it wasn't very big. It's a lot of word of mouth. And for me, I just, it was important for me to be respected. So all my decisions were based off of that. As simple as that sounds, but you know, everything I did was based off of that. All right. I didn't ever want anybody to have anything bad to say about me.
Yeah. And the interesting part is that there's so many different levels of respect too. You know,
Right.
because somebody could easily come into the industry and say, I want to be respected as a dancer, but not necessarily. They're making all the choices to not be respected as a person. You know,
Right.
and either one of them could get you specific opportunities. There's
Yeah.
people who come in that are not the best of dancers. However, they are respected as people, and that's why they booked work. So yeah, like to your point, it's I feel like knowing what levels of respect you're actually looking for, whether it's all around, whether it's just your talents, whether it's just your look. However, like there's multiple layers to it, and each one is gonna land you somewhere different. There's a lot of people out here that literally have no self respect for themselves, and they're willing to get all the chump change and get disrespected and all the things along those lines that nobody likes to see. Even when you're on the outside, we don't like to see that type of shit. However, their talent brings them in all the rooms, and I think that fucks with a lot of people's character.
But you know what though, Samuel, as long as I've been doing this, like I've seen a lot of people that are uber talented, like my God,
Mm-hmm.
and literally destroy their own career. So that only carries you up until a certain point because now being on the other side of the table, when I mean other side of the table, now that I'm choreographing, you know, um, there's a lot of things that go into place when you hire talent, right? One, do I want this person in the room for 8 or 10 hours? This person represents the work that I'm contributing to whatever production or whatever creative that, we're putting together. Is this person professional? Like, as talented as this person is, and literally could dance circles around everybody, how long how long are you going to keep somebody that's always coming in an hour late, missing flights,
Mm-hmm.
just being dramatic in the room? Like, that is energy, that is toxic energy when you're trying to create. And more so now when you're not even given the time
Oh
to
yeah,
create.
Yeah.
Like from when I started to now, they want, you're pulling like rabbits out of hats that you don't even have, And so do you want a great working environment, or do you want to have this person or people that are so talented but just literally bring toxicity
Mm-hmm.
into the room, you know? And you know this, when you start rehearsing in our industry, you go from family to family, right? For every production company, for every camp that work with, you're literally it's an entirely new family at this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
For whatever week or months that you're with them, whether you're on tour or a film or whatever it is. And after a while, you just don't want that. And I have seen people self-sabotage their own uh careers because they don't understand how to put the ego away and come and be a team player. You know, especially right now where everybody wants to be the star and doesn't have a really good understanding of the importance.
Can you still hear me, Samuel?
Yeah, now it's not the
Okay.
headphone. Yeah, you can switch it.
How about
Now, yep,
Now,
you're back on. There
okay,
you go.
so let me go back because you're gonna edit this, right?
Yeah, I could edit
Or
it. Yeah,
no?
it's all right. Shit, we're gonna keep it just how it is.
Okay. So what I'm saying is that, I think right now is everybody wants to be a star, which there's nothing wrong with that, right? That you should want to be the best at what you do, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I think right now what's happening is the lack of understanding of how important it is to be part of an ensemble, part of a team, part of a unit, right? Um, Especially when me now as a choreographer, I am dependent on the artists that I bring in to make this creative come to life.
Yep.
I don't know if we
Yep.
just ventured onto something else, but
Hey,
you know,
we're rolling with it. We're rolling with
yeah,
it.
yeah. All to say that, no matter how talented you are, I think um you have to understand how to be a professional, and it's so simple, and it goes back to the question that you asked me at the very beginning about etiquette, longevity, that sort of thing. Is It's the basic knowledge and understanding of being professional, being on time, being somebody that people want to work with, being that energy that you want in the room. Because what people don't understand is when you're the choreographer and you're in front of this room leading a team of people, it is a very sacred place to be, and it's a very vulnerable place to be, and you can feel that energy behind you. And people always ask, well, why does so and so always hire the same person? Because they know how to contribute to that safe and and
Yep.
and creative space, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
So
interesting. I never heard it that way in terms of it being a sacred environment because it is a very vulnerable position to be in. Like a lot of people in most cases see the finished product, you
yeah,
know, but everybody's process is very different, and shit, I gotta admit, there's been times where I've been a little judgy on people's like creative process and seeing it and be like, yo, how is this gonna turn out good? You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Like and based off of how they create. However, everybody has a way of doing it, and to know that there are people that bring energy into that vulnerable space. Yeah, I never looked at it that way. I never
It
looked
is.
at it
It's a
that way.
really, especially because who made me aware of that was Jamaica. We were, at the one of the intensives that I had, you know, she was sharing that information, and I was like, and this is obviously at the beginning of me, you know, really entering that space as well. And now that I'm in that space, it really is a very vulnerable space to be in, because you don't ever,
I'm listening.
you, yeah, um, you, you know, you can feel when people are being judgmental, you can feel that.
Yeah.
And that honestly will, and some people don't care, but for me, I'm sensitive about my shit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's like you want to be, you want to feel safe enough to kind of create, destroy, create, destroy, and build, right? Because usually, as you know, the rehearsal process, usually whatever comes out at the beginning is not what ends up being
It's not
what
the
it
final
ends up being
product.
at the end. No. So you want people that are going to be there to on the journey with you, you know, to help that process, to want to be you want people in the room that want to be a part of that process.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're at a point in your career where you're in the room and you're being judgmental, then you need to take a look and sit down with yourself and ask yourself, maybe I need to create my own and not be in this space.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Because to come into someone else's space and judge, then that means you have ideas that you need to create on your own.
Word up. Word up. 100%. Like,
You
yeah.
know,
Create the
it's not
opportunity for yourself and shut the fuck up.
right.
Yeah.
No, it's not true. It's like, it's almost like you either going to be in the trenches with me or you're going to be on the sideline, you know, judging.
Mm-hmm.
I want people in the room that are going to help me create something great, you know,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's whatever the case may be. But if you're in the room judging, that you really need to sit down with yourself and ask yourself, is this the room I want to be in? And is this what I want to do? Have I outgrown this?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. No, it's definitely an important thing to look at whenever you're walking into the, because there's always a bunch of rooms, right? Like, it's, I find it interesting running into dancers who have not been in multiple rooms, and some of them
Hmm.
have built their entire careers off of just one room, you know.
Right. Oh, I
And
like the way you're putting it. One room. Yes. Yes.
yeah, because
Yeah.
you're only learning so much just being in that one space, right?
Yes.
And or one camp, or however that you, however you want to do it. And let's face it, we all know that being in one camp is very, it has its time. You know, it has its time. And truth be told, I feel just like your dance journey and you learning multiple things to like mold you to like the final product and stuff, I feel it should be the same exact way with your journey as a professional, you know, because there's a lot of things that I've learned being in different rooms opposed to being in one, you know, because I know certain
Absolutely.
people, yeah, I know certain people that have gotten, like I said, they found their success being in one room, and then when that time was up, they were lost as fuck.
Yeah.
They were really lost because they're just so used to depending on this one group of people that when they come out, they, you know, they're a little surprised that people don't know who they are,
Yeah.
you
Well,
know.
because they've been in a, again, they've been in like a bubble,
Mm-hmm.
right? But no, it's exactly what you said. When you're able to work with different artists, you're able to be a part of all these different ways. I should say, you're able to be a part of their process. And everybody's process is different, right? Everybody's
Mm-hmm.
creative process is different. And you learn and you grow and you observe. And that's what feeds you as an artist. And that's honestly what helps you have longevity in this, because it's almost like when you only have one perspective and one way of solving a problem, then it kind of keeps you in this lane or this a very narrow path. Whereas if you find multiple ways to solve multiple problems or the same problem, then you're able to have this what's the word I'm looking for? You're just able to navigate through the industry much easier, and you're able to speak with different people on different platforms much easier.
Yeah. Who would you
You
say
know,
who would you say is are three choreographers that three attributes that you learn from three different choreographers that you know that you put that shit in your back pocket and you were like, I'm running with this.
only three?
Yeah, I mean, you can name however you
Okay.
want. I was just trying to make a small list for you, and it's not. And just to clarify, like I don't mean a best to worst. You know what I'm saying? Like I
No,
don't.
no, no, no. But
Yeah,
just like, just some gems. Some
yeah,
gems.
yeah.
So, okay. I think my first one will be Tina Landon,
Mm-hmm.
right? It was my very first gig with her, with Ricky Martin back in the day. And I was green to the industry, like super hype. Everything was full out. Like, you couldn't tell me, like, I'm with Tina Landon, I'm gonna be full the fuck out.
Yep.
And I remember it was my very first MTV Awards, and we were rehearsing for Ricky Martin, and it was like to Shake Your Bonbon. And she started teaching the choreography, and everything was like full out. I guess I don't care. And it was like Shake Your Bonbon. Yo, I couldn't shake my hip any harder because I don't even know.
That was funny.
And she looked at me and she said, after we did it, this and that, and she looked at me, she was like, Jess, you're working too hard. And Samo, yo, that hit me like a bullet because first of all, Tina Landon, like Velvet Rope Tour, like Janet, Michael, like everybody. And here she is that I'm working too hard. So one, I was like, oh my God, I disappointed her. And then two, it was like, what does she mean? What does she mean by that? Because to me, being a dancer, being that young, it's like, of course I should be full out. This is a job, I'm happy to be here. Like, I want to give her everything of me. And then, during that rehearsal process, she kind of took me to the side and she was like, Jess, you're working too hard. She was like, find your moments to breathe. Understand the dynamics behind it. Like, she really sat down and like schooled me as to how to perform. Now I'm leaving the studio. No longer am I a student, but I'm entering a world, this professional world where I need to find my who I am as a performer, right? It's no longer a competition of who can do it the best. It's understanding how to visually give what you need to give in this creative, right? And the moment she said that, and she really like sat me down and explained as to, and it wasn't that she explained in detail, but she took that moment to mentor me. She took that moment to mentor me, and I'll never forget that because I carried that with me on every single job after that. And obviously I have a really great relationship with her. She's a friend, a mentor, and she hired me she's hired me for years ever since then. But that was like one moment where I was like, she took me from being this studio class taking dancer to, all right, now you need to know how to perform.
Yeah.
And then Lorianne Gibson, right? I remember we were rehearsing for tour for Mario. And yo, that's why I look at these kids now and be like, yo, what are you complaining about? Because those rehearsals, there were moments where I would vomit, like literally vomit, because we were dancing so hard and for so long. Like 8 hours was 8 hours of dancing, with a 1 hour break. So it wasn't like a thing of like you learn it and then you sit down and no, like literally it was this constant like boot camp of dancing. Like I would have to bring multiple shirts, it was just insane. But I remember we were hitting the stage and she said, she said to me, she was like, I want you, and I'm saying it much nicer than Lorianne, but
let's be clear.
let's be clear. But she was like, she was like, I will never let you go on stage and not and have you feel like you don't know what you're doing or where you should be. Mm-hmm. So that, to me, as hard as she was on us and the yelling and the literally the physical pain that we would be in rehearsal, when she said that, I said, okay, got it. So what she was doing was, it was her responsibility to make sure that we knew exactly what we were doing once we hit that stage. Mm-hmm. And for me, that was another like key moment of, okay, got it. Because I'll tell you, when you work with Lorianne, you know exactly what you're doing, where you are, who you're next to. Like, once you hit the stage, you don't even have to think about the choreography. It's so ingrained in your muscle memory that you don't even have to think.
Yeah.
And then, the other person is Fatima Robinson, which is the polar opposite.
Polar
Opposite
literally.
of Lorianne and Tina. But there was this maturity that I needed to bring into the room. And not that I didn't need it with Tina or Lorianne, but there was this maturity that I needed to have in the room with Fatima. Mm-hmm. Because Fatima's rehearsals are very quiet. And that's the only way I can explain it. They're very quiet and they're very subtle. So you almost have to come in already knowing what it is that you need to do. I don't know if that just made sense.
Yeah, I the way I interpret it is, you have to have a level of poise.
Yes.
When working with Fatima, like she's all about the energy. She's all about like making sure that nobody's acting out or whatever. It's like, and it's not, not to confuse anybody. It's not that you cannot have fun.
No.
There's just this essence that she has when she walks into the room. I'll be like, what is happening?
It's a really strong energy. And if you're not ready for that, you won't understand it.
Yeah. It could really fuck with your ego. It could really fuck with your ego, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. It took me a while to understand the energy that I needed to bring into a room with her. Mm-hmm. Like it took me a second, and it's an adjusting. And that's the thing, when you work with different people, you have to be able to read the room, mm-hmm. right? And you have to be able to understand, okay, what is the energy that I need to bring into this particular room? Which I love that you use, the example of rooms, the different rooms, because it's true for us. It's the studio, it's the room. When you walk into the room, it's like, what is that energy that you need to bring in? And, yeah, and working with Fatima, it taught me that not everything needs to be loud. Not everything needs to be loud. It's almost like being in a room with Fatima, it's almost like graduation. It's like, are you ready to be in a room with her? Mm-hmm. Okay, got it.
Yeah. Like,
because she's not loud. She's not one to yet. Like, she's not. She's like a quiet storm. Mm-hmm. it's a definite, it was, you have to be mature enough to understand that,
Yeah, yeah.
I think.
I, I'll never forget the first time working with her. Um, Dubs hired me and a few other b boys, and this is my first look. When I tell you that when I walked into this industry, I was like literally like I don't know what the fuck is what. Like I confused Fatima for the agent. I thought Fatima, yeah, like I thought the agent and the choreographer were the same people. I had no idea. I had no clue. I had no clue. Right. And I'm in there and she's not in the room yet. She's always walking in a little, little later, fashionably late. And not that she's late, she just be busy. Um, and I'll never forget the moment she walked in. I was like, "This is not the room I should be fucking around in." Mm-mm. None of this extra movement on the side, no ciphering, even though I'm in the room with B-boys. Like it was like, I need to have my shit together right now or I'm out of here.
Yes,
And
yes.
she didn't even say anything. Not one
No,
word came out of her mouth. It was just
no.
watching her walk from the entrance of the room to her seat. And I was like, wow,
Yeah,
this is powerful.
yes.
Yeah, I learned really quickly, like man, and and um something about that energy made me want to come back to it. Even though it came back years later, it was like
Yeah,
there there must be a reason. This is must be part of the reason why she's at where she's at. You know,
yes.
yeah,
I mean,
that
listen,
that shit is like a special fucking mahia. Like
yeah.
it's like
Brujeria!
yo, it's crazy. It's crazy because she's also the only person that I've experienced that with in this industry. And whatever. Granted, everybody's different, right? You're gonna receive a different energy, everywhere. However, this was drastically different. It was drastically different for sure.
I mean, and again, for me as a woman, thankfully, I have such great examples. Like even with hi hat, my very first video was with hi hat back in the day. It was with Busta and Janet. She didn't know who I was. I auditioned for her, you know, and she was like my introduction to that world. Like my first video was with Hype Williams. He directed that video, working with hi hat. And at the time I didn't have an agency, so she was the one that taught me, um, in the sense of like this is how dancers should be treated, right? Because technically she worked as my agent. Like the rates went through her, she paid. And I remember what hi hat after that, and I don't know if she still does it anymore. And she's another one that's kept me working for years. But I remember after I did that video, I received my check in the mail by her in a card saying thank you for working. It was just like this appreciation behind what I contributed
Yeah.
to this particular job. And that was like my first introduction of, this is how choreographers should treat their dancers, or the people working
She
with
set the
them,
standard.
for them. Yes.
Yeah.
So I was really grateful for that. And with Tina, because when I did step into a room where dancers or we were made to feel less than, I was like, all right, no taken. Yeah, no need to come back to this camp anymore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Especially because working with such great minds, again, Rich and Tone, Akma Jones, Hi Hat, Jamie King, like each and every one of them always treated me with respect. So when I went into a room where I felt less than, it was always like, okay, yeah, nah, no need to come back to this,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Yeah.
I think it's that's a good thing to know that um those times that you were being treated less than, you already knew that it wasn't you.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
You
And yo,
know,
I think
yeah.
there's a lot of dancers are afraid to like. Let's face it. Sometimes it can be you, right? Not saying you in particular, but it can be the person, right? And they have to kind of sit back and
Right.
think about what you've been
Yes.
doing, how
Yeah.
you've been behaving, all this
Yeah.
stuff or whatever. But then it comes to times where you got to say, wait a second. I know that I know that I know for sure that I have not been out of line. And
Yes.
I think dancers need to be a little more brave,
Yeah.
when it comes to those moments, and not necessarily feel like, oh, I'm taking an L because this was a way that I was planning on paying for X and whatever the hell, whether it's rent,
Yeah.
whether it's like, nah. Either you could get the job done and know that you don't ever want to come back here,
Right.
or you could be like, fuck out of here energy, you know?
Yeah.
Because you do deserve that respect. You do deserve that respect. And I mean, thankfully, just from my own personal experience, I haven't experienced it much, but I know that the times that I have really quiet conversation with the person, you know,
Right.
and let it be very, very well known that that's not happening here,
Yeah.
at least with me, and whatever you choose to do after that, it is what it is, you know. I'm just letting you know very, very early, like that. I do not play those me versus you energy. It's nah, nah. It's
You
unnecessary,
know,
you know?
yeah. Samuel, there's like a couple of ways to look at it, right? Because it is scary being a dancer because you're, and when I say this, I'm particularly speaking about the industry. I'm not even talking about being an influencer or,
Right,
like
right.
social
That's a
media.
whole other
Like that's
thing.
completely, that's a whole nother thing. But
Yeah.
when you're in this industry, and especially when you're new, and even when you're not new, right? There are certain people that you want to work with, or maybe this person is working with the artist that you want to work, or doing the film that you want to be in, or whatever the case may be. But it's almost like it does take courage, right, to stand up. But I will say this, I'm very big on pick and choose your battles, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pick and choose your battles, because for me, again, it's like, what is it that I'm trying to accomplish for me, for my career, you know so on and so forth. And so when I have found myself in rooms where I'm like, whoever the head of the room is really isn't dealing with us in the way that we should be dealt with, right, or handled. um I think to myself, one, is this a battle that I want to fight? Two, do I allow this person to take this away from me?
Right.
Do I stay here and continue to do what it is that I want to do, right? And am I able to compartmentalize that? Like, am
Mm-hmm.
I able to be in the room and almost like have uh this what's the word I'm looking for? Like almost like focus, where whatever it is that this person, the energy that this person is giving, am I able to kind of disassociate myself from that and keep it business?
Right, right, right.
And a lot of times, you know, because of everything that I've gone through, and the time that I started, and I say the time that I started because, um, I'm also a person that is able to take critique. I'm also a person that is able to not take it personal, and almost like see not the good in everything, but like, all right, what do I need to work on
Yeah.
type situation. So for me, I always came into a room with the, if you want to call it intention, or the thing of I'm not going to allow this person to hinder what it is that I want to do, right?
Yeah.
Basically, to put it in simple terms, I'm not letting I'm not going to let anybody fuck with my money.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm able to kind of put things in compartments and stay focused and not allow that energy to destroy me,
Yeah.
then I'll stay. Now, if it's at a level of just like plain disrespect, then we can absolutely part ways.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm also big on like, and sometimes people, the level of disrespect, people sometimes see it very differently. Like, what is a creative asking you for? Is it, asking you to do something that maybe isn't in alignment with you? Not necessarily that the person that hired you is horrible, but is the creative in alignment with you as a person? And for me, because, also being, and I'm sure it's like this for men too, but for women, they always want to have you naked, and they always want to have you in a thong or in a this or in a that. And so a lot of times what I face, a lot of questions that a lot of the women and, the students that come to me, or, women in the business are like, just, but hey, Google, stop.
Yo, I swear you talk to her like it's your child.
But basically, like, a lot of the things are, well, just, I don't want to be naked. I don't feel like I should have to be, or I don't feel like I should have to chop off my hair because, this artist visually wants something on stage. And I'm like, well, then there's that side of like, and I always, plainly and honestly just say, well, this isn't the industry that you want to be in, right?
Mm.
Because when you come into this industry, you have to come in knowing that you should be a blank canvas. Now, again, everybody has their negotiables and their non-negotiables, right? For me, coming into it, knowing the artist that I am, and any creative, I'm like, all right, does the creative make sense? Is it in line with what it is as a whole, right? So if
Yeah.
they want me to be naked, why is it that they want me to be naked? Like, what is the creative behind it? Is it something that I feel is artistic? Or is it something that just, they
This
just
is
want me
raunchy.
naked? It's just raunchy. You
Yeah.
see what I'm saying? Like, and obviously, if I'm going on tour with Madonna, we all know that Madonna is the queen of literally reinventing every single dancer on that stage, right? So in knowing that, then do I go into this audition for Madonna knowing that I'm gonna be possibly asked to either chop my hair, bleach, whatever it is the case may be. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like you also have to come into this industry with this sense of, not sense of, but knowing what it is that you're walking into.
Mm.
We have a responsibility as artists. Now, when you create your own, then you can do whatever the hell you want. But as
Yeah.
long as you're coming into this industry, which is a choice, ain't nobody forcing you to come into this. It is a choice. You also make the choice to come into it, surrendering to it, being open, being open to it. And for me, that's always been my the way I see it.
Mm-hmm.
Is like, if I'm gonna come in for whatever camp or whatever room or whatever project or whatever, it is that I'm gonna be working on, does the creative make sense as to why they want me to do certain things?
Yeah.
And if it does, I'm down for it. I'm here. Shave my head, do whatever. I've done it all, right? But if it doesn't make sense to me, then I absolutely have the choice to walk away from it.
Yeah. And to be clear, it's that if it makes sense for the path that you want to take. right? Because
Right.
a creative can make sense, and it very much so be raunchy shit, and you like, just because it makes sense doesn't mean it's necessarily for you.
Right. And that's
Yeah,
another thing. Like, we all have choices, but for me, I just wanted to be versatile. I wanted to be able to work on every platform possible. That's just how I see it. Like, I want to be able, I wanted to be, I didn't just want to do one thing.
yeah,
I wanted to be able to call myself a working artist, not just somebody who does this and somebody
hmm
who does that. I
yeah.
want to be able to say, when people ask me, "Oh, what do you do?" I'm an artist. I'm a working artist. That's always been my thing.
And it's important too to just give yourself like that blank, that blanket of because being an artist means so many different things,
So many.
and just labeling yourself a dancer or just labeling yourself a mover or anything along those lines is that's just a subgenre of an artist, you know and to be able to give yourself that blanket, it's like it's almost as if people can't necessarily put you in a box, or you putting your taking yourself out of a box,
Yeah.
by calling yourself that. I like that.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
that. Oh, I think I'm gonna steal that. Now, you had mentioned something about choices, and I know that we're a little past this situation. However, it's something that we've discussed outside of obviously this space. Um, However, I think uh, people having different perspectives on this topic, I think is very important. You know,
Yeah.
and specifically, I'm talking about what had just happened with Super Bowl, and not necessarily the Super Bowl, but the drama that was created around it, and specifically the volunteers, and
Mhm.
people, doing volunteer work, right?
Yeah.
And now we both understand that volunteer work comes in many different ways, shapes, and forms. You know,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
obviously not something that is only catered towards entertainment, you know, and it's in pretty much every walk of life.
Yeah.
We volunteer to help people with their grocery. Like it's like it's just it's. I do feel that there is a return, but the return doesn't always look the same.
Yeah.
I feel like people take the time to volunteer their time and their energy for different things. You
Yeah.
know, um, and specifically, you mentioned the word choices, right?
Yeah.
And how do you feel that it is a bad choice for a dancer who does not have much experience, right, and is looking for an in, right?
Yeah.
A way to get into a room, so on and so
Yeah.
forth. It could be many different reasons. However, do you feel
Yeah.
that um, it is detrimental to the dancer, and do you feel like
Mhm.
it's detrimental to the industry when people volunteer their time and energy to for a potential opportunity that they may see for themselves?
Yeah.
And I know this is a loaded question.
It's a loaded question because, I'm gonna speak on it from a very personal uh perspective.
Yeah.
So, I think for me in, again, in starting when I first started, you know, I did a lot of gigs that barely paid anything, if not didn't pay anything, right?
hmm
Now, I was able to gain some experience. I was also able to network, um, and just kind of have like almost like this basic understanding, right, of what this industry could potentially be
Hmm.
for me, right? Um, Especially being so green, not having any experience performing, just a plethora of things. But I think when you speak about that, you know, it's like particularly the Super Bowl, right? For years they have had people volunteer. I mean, I've done two Super Bowls, one with Janet, one with Beyonce. And for years, this is nothing new where, there are hundreds of volunteers that, are on the field. And for years, you know, they were not paid. And so to me, when all of this happened, I didn't understand why I didn't understand why it was such a big deal when this had been happening for years. And a lot of times these volunteers are, dancers or regular people that are, I wouldn't say regular people, but people that are not in the industry. But a lot of times the studios of these local cities would be approached. And these are like young dancers that have never done anything and that have the opportunity to put, worked with so and so Super Bowl blah 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 on their resume, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
if I'm new and I've never done anything like a perform anything in my life, I would absolutely and knowing who was that, knowing who the choreographer was, the idea of being able to put the Super Bowl and this choreographer on my resume would have been a complete yes for me, right?
Right.
The younger me, the
Hmm.
younger
Hmm.
me. I'm being very specific, the
Yeah.
younger me. One, knowing who I was gonna work for, even the idea that she might even see me, right?
Might. So she might, but you're
Might,
willing to take the
might.
chance. Yeah,
I'm
you're willing.
willing to take that chance.
Yeah.
Might, right? That she would even see me. And knowing that I could literally put this on my resume as you know, which is a really big thing, you know, now do I think that doing, I'll also say this, right? When you come in as a volunteer, the guidelines, the guidelines are very clear as to when you're being asked to volunteer, there's a choice. There's like an exchange, right? I'm
Yeah.
asking you, will you be a volunteer? And you say yes. So nowhere there am I confused about what volunteer means. It means non-paid. It means giving your time. It means literally volunteering your time for something, knowing that you're not going to get any financial return back,
Yeah. And
right?
especially, sorry to cut you off, especially if the exchange that you're looking for, you saying it may not be the money, and that that may not be important to you.
Right, right, right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So the exchange for me is I volunteer my talents. I'm giving my talents, but at the same time, what I get back from me, the younger me, would be her name, Super Bowl on my resume,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Which the younger me, absolutely, right? It's an opportunity of a lifetime, really.
Hmm.
Even if I never do an 8 count. um, but now again, going back, right? So when you're asked to be a volunteer, the guidelines are very clear as to what you're being compensated for, what you're not being compensated for, um, you know, et cetera, et cetera. Do I think, is it different from somebody asking me to be in a music video for an artist that, um, maybe this is a bad example, but I'm going to use it anyway. You know, is it bad for me, or no, let me see how I say this right. I think it's when you're being asked to work for someone or a production company that you're being asked to work for free, which is different than being asked to volunteer. And I know that some people may be like, oh, but it's the same thing, right? It's the same thing. But I think when you ask someone to volunteer, you're going in knowing that this is what you signed up to do,
Mm. Yeah.
right? I mean, Samuel, I don't know. I think for me, it's like there's so many ways you can answer this question. Do I think we should do it all the time? No. Do I
No,
think
I agree 1,000,000%.
no, no. You know, to me, do I agree with how the situation was approached? No. However, am I happy with the results? How it benefited every volunteer on there? Yes.
Yeah. And just to be
So that's
clear for those
yeah.
listening, um, Taja Riley made a statement about the Super Bowl asking dancers to volunteer, and specifically asking dancers to volunteer for the Super Bowl, just like any other volunteer, any other person that's like not in the industry, um, and yeah, I believe that she had some type of issue with the dancers being questioned through our agencies and whatnot. Um,
I think
yeah,
that's
so that's
really
that's a
honestly
good
when it comes down to it, like because when you volunteer, you when they're looking for volunteers for something like the NFL, it usually doesn't go through an agency. It
right.
usually, it goes through some other channel, whether it's a newspaper or even online or the website. But I think what happened here was that, the agency ended up sending out these emails to the dancers, to their clientele. I mean, not clientele, to their professional dancers.
Hmm.
And I think I can understand why receiving that email would have felt like, wait a minute, why are you sending me this email to volunteer? Right. However, then you can also look at it. Maybe I'm 18 or 17 or I don't know, whatever. And I've never worked on anything in my life.
Yeah,
Should I have the choice, the freedom to say yes to this? Maybe,
I think so. Again,
yeah,
and just because you're part of an agency does not necessarily mean that everybody's on the same level.
right.
Like there are many different things that an agent looks at. It doesn't necessarily mean that an agent is going to bring you into their agency because you're already working,
Yeah,
because you have relationships with um set choreographer or whatever the case. In a lot of cases, they see potential in you sometimes, and they are willing to they're willing to take the chance in bringing someone in that they see potential in, and let's see where it goes from here, right?
yeah,
Because at the end of the day, the most that they have to lose is a extra little click in a submission, for them to be able to put you on certain things, and maybe somebody may see something in you that'll click. Um, However, yeah, just going back to, not everybody's on the same level, and that's totally okay. And I think that it's important. My personal opinion, I think that because we're not all at the same level, it is important for agencies to be able to push those opportunities as well, and not push them on you, but just present
yeah.
them. Like, hey, do you like this? No, all right,
Which is
boom.
what they
No,
did. But you know
yeah.
what? It's exactly what they did because when the email went out, the guidelines literally were there.
Hmm.
You had a choice to say yes to it or no to it. So it wasn't like they were leaving anything out. And in the bullet points in that email were very clear as to what you would get
Yes,
compensated for
yes.
and what you would not get compensated for. Now, Samuel, the bigger picture is that the result was great, right? The volunteers got paid $15 an hour as they should. The NFL has been wrong for doing this for so many years, right? So many
Or
for
not
years,
though. Or
right?
not. You
But
know.
it's like, they're a business. They're gonna try to get away with what they can get away. If
Yeah.
they can get talent for no money, then they're gonna do it.
Yeah.
But I think the bigger picture is, you know, dancers understanding the power that they have, not only for Super Bowl, but the thing is, if you're gonna do this for Super Bowl, then you need to do it across the board.
Yeah.
You can't pick and choose what you're gonna go on strike for, what you're gonna call out, but then pull out some favors for other people. I think if you're gonna do it, you got to do it across the board, and people are always like, but Jess, there's always gonna be somebody that's gonna come and do it for less. Yes. However, if we all as a community understand the power that we hold as a community, united, the power that we hold, then things like this would stop happening,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Things like this would
100%.
stop happening because you force the entities that be, the entities that have the money to pay, you force them to go back and find the financial resources to pay you what it is that you need to be paid for the talents that you are giving,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's, I don't know if that will ever set in, and I pray and I hope that that does one day for the community, because until the day comes where we all just say, no, we're not going to do this. You're not going to have us for free. You're not going to have us for $100 on this video shoot. I don't care who it is for. Until that day comes, it's going to continue to happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know for years I've been fighting small battles within the jobs I've been in, whether it's contracts, whether it's me and the other dancers saying, no, we're not getting on that bus until you fix our rate. Or no, we're not getting on stage. Or literally being on set and being like, until I get my paycheck, we're not going on set.
Yeah.
And these are small battles, right? That aren't advertised on social media, that we do in hopes that the next person coming into this setting won't have to go through that anymore,
Yeah.
right? But the problem is that you have this younger, or not even younger, people in general that just want to be in it so bad that don't even take into consideration the battles that have been fought in order for us to get the minimum that we're getting.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah. And to piggyback off that, the battles that have been fought in a very particular way.
yes. I
That
mean,
that
listen,
yeah.
when I've been on tour, there were weeks of going back and forth with the agency and the management as to our rate, as to rooms, as to this, as to that. And then after weeks of going back and forth, contracts, this and that, when things aren't when things weren't happening, then that's when we were like, we're not getting on stage.
Yeah.
Literally tour in our wardrobe. Lights are about to come on in 10 literally minutes. We're not getting on stage.
Yeah.
So no, is this something that we advertise on social media? No. However, these are small battles that I've been a part of that hopefully the next group of dancers coming in don't ever have to go through,
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we as dancers, as artists, hold power. And I feel like the day that this community understands the power that we hold, people are so afraid of really understanding what that power would feel like.
Well, you know what's interesting when you talk about like the power in community. it doesn't even have to be the entire community. It has to be the top people.
The
The
top people, but
the
the
people the
majority.
yeah, like the people that have the highest demands. Let's face it. Every camp has their set of people that they're like, I'm constantly working with this person because they make my job easier every time. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Every time I have them around or whatever, just like we spoke about earlier. However, all it takes is those guys to make a shift happen, you know,
Yeah.
especially in a situation that, you know, affects them, you know. And let's face it, not every, you know, just like in this situation, it didn't affect us as the dancers that were hired, that had to audition and that were,
Yeah.
you know, it didn't affect us. And um you know, this really had nothing to do with that, with this particular camp. You know, it had to do with the Super Bowl in general, you know.
And I
um
think for me that was the thing. It was almost like, no, this doesn't have anything to do with the dancers that were hired. The
no.
dancers, the professional dancers that were hired. This has to do with the volunteers that were asked to be volunteers. And I think for me, that was like the thing of like, all right, wait a minute, let's start putting things in compartments. Like the dancers that were hired because they auditioned are getting the rates that they should be getting.
Hmm.
So to me it was like, I don't know, it was just
It was just messy. It
it
was
was
messy.
messy. Now the result was great. So here on in, the volunteers get no longer are they volunteers because they're getting paid.
Yeah,
So
I thought that was
now,
awesome. I thought, you know, just to be
I
clear, I thought that
mean,
was
yeah, it's a
awesome.
win.
Awesome.
It's a
Yeah.
win. It's a win because it it's a win. It's a win. And it just shows the good thing about it, it just shows the power in numbers.
Hmm.
It
Hmm.
shows the power in numbers. I mean, I think again, listen, I think once we understand the power that we have as artists, we're people don't even understand the how this industry would change. It's like, to give a very clear example, right? A couple of years ago, I was assisting Rich and Tone on this job, and it was for a very big cosmetic line. And the creative team that was behind it had never really worked with dancers before, right?
Hmm.
So they didn't really understand, what dancers should be paid, this and that, the hours, basically the fundamentals of what it is to hire dancers and rates. Now, when I was hired as I was assisting Rich and Tone on this. And what a lot of people don't know is that a lot of times the choreographers don't know. The choreographer is already assuming that the dancers are getting the rates that they should be getting, especially when they're being hired by this huge like corporation, right?
Hmm.
So, and you know how finicky Rich and Tone are. They're very particular about who they're hiring. So we went back and forth. This is a week of going back and forth, putting different dancers together, combinations of, getting approved by so and so. And then finally we got to a good core of 8 dancers, right? Actually 6 dancers. Um, and so, the bookings went out, and then I start getting emails from the agents, right? And the agents are, saying, hey, Jessica, so and so really wants to do it, but this rate is really low. I don't know if she's going to be able to do it. And I'm thinking, low?
Hmm.
Wait, what is the rate? So I find out what the rate is, right? And not just from one dancer, from all of them, from different agents. All these, emails are coming from the different agencies. Hey, so and so really wants to work with you guys. However, the rate is just really low. I don't know if they'll be able to do it. So I'm thinking, what is the rate? I find out what the rate is. I'm like, oh my God. I hit up Tone and I'm like, listen, Tone, the dancers are about to walk. We need to figure something out with the rate because this is the rate. He was like, what's the rate? I was like, this is the rate. He was like, ah. He's like, all right, just remind me what the rate should be. I'm like, this, and this. He's like, all right, give me 10 minutes. He gets on the phone with the creative team, right? The people handling the finances. I don't know what he did. He came back. He was like, all right, they got the rates that they should be getting. Let all the agencies know. So, right? People can either look at it and be like, oh, but Tone and Rich, they stepped in and did what they have to do. However, the dancers, the artists said, we can't do it for that rate. As much as I want to work with you, we can't do it for that rate. So that's a prime example of the power. Now, when they said this, I knew that they were risking not being able to work with Rich and Tone, right? And they were risking losing this gig. However, they knew that they were worth more than what the rate that was initially given to them, which we had we weren't aware of it.
Yeah, it's completely separate from the
It's
choreographers.
yeah.
Yeah.
So then what happened? So the trickle effect is these artists, these dancers said, we can't do it for that rate, right? Rich and Tone wanted these very specific dancers, right? So they, on their part, did whatever they needed to do to make sure that these dancers got the rate that they should be given, right? So at the end of the day, it starts there. It didn't start because of Rich and Tone. It started because these dancers, these artists said, we can't do it for that rate, knowing that they could possibly be replaced. However, that changed the dynamic and they ended up getting the rate that they should have been getting. And I feel like when people start to realize the power, because if you have no talent, you have no product. If you have no talent, you have no award show. If you have no talent, you have no tour. If you don't have the dancers, if you don't have the artists, you force people to be like, all right, to come back to the table and be like, all right, this is what we can do. It's so simple. It's so simple.
I also want to point out that it was awesome that Tone stepped in. It was awesome that he knew what it is that he wanted, and he was willing to put up his own fight. In order to get the outcome that the dancers wanted or whatever. Because at the end of the day, if we have no dancers, the whole shit is done, right?
You have no product.
However, there also is no obligation from him to do so.
Right. And this is what I want to make very clear. Yes, because you're not always going to work with choreographers that are going to step in and go to bat for you. You're not.
And that doesn't make them evil people. That doesn't make them assholes.
No,
it doesn't do any of that.
It doesn't do any of that. As artists, you have to take responsibility for what it is, for your craft, for what it is that you have to contribute, and force the people that be to see that. Again, you have no artist, you have no product.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And they're getting hired too. They're getting hired too. They're not the ones. They're not the ones with the money, distributing it out. You know what I'm saying? It's like no, they're getting hired just like we are. And they could, and again, different ones go about it in very different ways, right? They could very much so. Oh wait, so you're telling me that all the dancers want to leave, and you can't do anything about it? You can't make these dancers. Okay, well, I guess we should find somebody else. They're taking that chance too.
Yes, absolutely.
And depending on like where they are in their career, what type of respect that they have, all of that stuff, will determines what their actions are going to be. And again, it doesn't make it wrong that they rather go up to bat for themselves opposed to going up to bat for you, because they also have bills to pay.
Yeah.
And it's, we say all this to say, to target choreographers as if they have the obligation to step in on certain situations is totally a like a misconception. It's a misconception. Like
Yeah.
it's not
No.
something that is fair. You know, it's not fair,
No.
especially when you don't necessarily know like what positions these people play. Like, yo, they're work for hire too. They are work
Yeah.
for hire too. You know, like
Yeah.
I can't sit here and expect every choreographer to like have my back. I don't.
No, as an
I
art,
barely know any
yeah.
of these motherfuckers like fully. You know
No.
what I'm saying?
Yeah, but it's like exactly as an artist, you have to take the power back. You
Yeah.
have to take the power back. And I think that the day that as a community, the day that, you know, we come to that full understanding, I really think that that's when big change will happen.
Hmm.
You know, change is happening slowly now, but I really feel like once this community really understands the power that they hold, then big change will happen, you
Yeah.
know? And it doesn't always have to be loud, you know? And
And
sometimes it has to be loud,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know? But
Depending on
I
the
think,
severity. Yeah.
yes, depending on the severity, but I think, you know, really understanding the power that we hold, you know, and the change that could happen when that power is realized is like, you know, but until then, there's always going to be small battles to be fought and, you know,
I think it's also
hopefully
important to
small
have.
wins.
I think it's really important to also have people like yourself in the front lines as well. And not saying in the front lines like you should be taking any hits for us or anything along those lines,
Well,
right?
because I have for years. Let me tell you something, Samo.
However, what I do mean is like when people get to hear your voice and your perspective and ways to go about it, um, it's in a lot of cases not what people are how people are used to fighting battles. You know,
Now, now,
now, now.
now. It's a
You know,
very
everybody has
different,
a
yeah,
everybody has a different perspective on how it is that they should be fighting battles. You know,
yeah,
and especially in this day and age where it's very easy to not have conversations privately and make them public, and
yeah,
making sure that you get to other outlets and making an uproar
yeah,
and things like that. Like, um, every battle does not have to be fought that way. And my biggest concern was, everybody's gonna go about it the way they do, plain and simple. However, my biggest concern is I would hate for the next generation or the generation coming up now to think that this is the way they should be fighting. You know,
yeah,
everybody's gonna have their way of doing it. And kudos to
yeah,
you. You get your own
yeah,
results and you get all of that stuff, right? However,
yeah,
not every battle needs to be fought like this. And you'd be surprised, especially when you look at all the other examples on the other parts of entertainment, that fighting it the most professional way possible usually gets you the outcome that you're looking for,
yeah,
versus the other way around. And
yeah,
in this case scenario, I didn't really watch too much of the Taja Raleigh videos. I kind of like
yeah,
got knew about this from another source. Um and one thing I just didn't respect the way that it was being done. However, it did it did not mean that they didn't get the outcome that they wanted.
right,
And
yeah,
what it also meant was, okay, you got the outcome, but I am also sure that these people suffered some type of consequences as well
mm,
because of the way they went about it. So it's like, for example, they got the outcome that they wanted. However, you know, some people may, and I not that I know this for a fact. However, some people may look at you because of the way that you went about things and say, "That's not the energy I want in this room."
Yeah.
moving forward. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And
Well,
who
you know, Samuel, it goes back to what we were talking about before. It's like, you know, who do you want in the room?
yeah, yeah,
You know, and then again, you know, to be play devil's advocate, it's like maybe certain people don't really care
hmm,
whether you want them in the room or not,
yeah,
you know? So I think more importantly, you know, the outcome, no longer are they volunteers, now they were paid, right? Which is something that, you know, we should all fight to have to, you know, um personally, do I agree with the approach? No. But am I happy with the outcome? Yes.
yeah, yeah,
You know?
yeah,
So it's a matter of like let's agree to disagree, you know? Yeah.
yeah. And I feel like it's our responsibility to, especially the people that want to go about this journey a very specific and certain way, that matches
Yeah.
their values, that matches their
Yeah.
character and all that stuff. Like, there's so many different walks of life in this industry, and the way that people move literally works for them, you know,
Listen.
and this is why
Listen.
and they may not be the way that we look at it, and they may not be the ways that we think is professional, whatever the case may be, right? However, I do think the reason I bring this up is it's very important for people to see different perspectives, just so that they don't feel that
Yeah.
they're forced to go about it in a way that doesn't match their character.
That's actually really well put, Samuel, and I appreciate you for saying that. And that's absolutely correct. Like, you know, yes, there's, you know, there's not one way to solve a problem, there are many.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. Like, this wasn't the only way to do it. However, the result that came from it was absolutely a win,
Yeah.
right? But it may not be for everybody. So I
Mm-hmm.
actually appreciate you saying it the way you just stated it. That's a good one. You should write that down. You should write
Nah,
that
I got
down.
it
You
on
should
record,
write that
girl.
down.
I got it on record. Nah, I think I know that it's important because just especially in the heat of it all, right? I said my piece and I said the things that I said, and there it's not for everybody to speak up, you know. And there was a lot of people that contacted me that were like, "Yo, I really respect the way that you're looking at this. I feel the same way, whatever." And it's all right. It's not for everybody to speak up or whatever the case. I just
You
knew
know what?
for
But Samuel, just because you're not loud with it doesn't mean you're going to speak up,
yeah, no,
if that makes
agreed.
sense.
Yeah, yeah,
Like, you know what I mean? Just because you're not loud with it doesn't mean that there isn't another way for you to speak about it or speak up for it or, you know, whatever the case may be. So,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. I think um, people hearing this are hopefully they take a lot from it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Um, Especially like just bringing it back to the beginning of the conversation. It's like, how are you gonna navigate this journey that you're on?
Mm,
It's like it it's truly all on you.
yeah.
You know, the
Yeah.
way this path goes. It's like, are you gonna know every outcome that you're gonna receive? No, right?
No.
Because they may not be the ones that you're actually looking for. However, if you learn how to navigate it in a way where you don't feel bad about the way that you did it, and you don't feel bad about the choices that you've been making throughout all your experiences and whatnot, I think that's probably the most important part. the outcome is not always going to go your way. Whether you're fucking
No.
moving positively or negatively or whatever, it's just
Yeah.
not. That's just not how it works. It's not how God
No.
like makes it work for us. It's like everything happens for a reason, you know.
Absolutely. I think there's a lesson learned in everything. I think it's almost um understanding that you're going to make the choices for as best as you can with the information that you have at that time.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Making the best choices with the information that you have at that time. Because sometimes even what you think is the best may not be the best, but there's a learning lesson in that. And so the next time this comes, now you have more information to base your choices off of.
Yup. Yup.
So trust me, we've all been through.
The ringer.
So
Yo.
it's like I think however it is, however you decide to navigate through this, it's almost like whatever information you have at that time, making the best choice possible and feeling good about it wholeheartedly. You're not always going to know, but at least, you know, you feel good about it,
Yeah.
as good as you could possibly feel.
100%. 100%. Yo, Jess, I know you got things to do, so
Yeah,
we
yo,
ain't
like
gonna hold you up too long. You can sit here for hours. You know what I'm saying? However, it doesn't necessarily mean that this is the last time I'm gonna have you back. Like, you know, as we progress, as like, things happen throughout our journey, and as we grow, whatever, there's always gonna be new things to talk about. You know, so it's a pleasure having you on. Let the people know how they could find you.
you can find me on Insta at Elia Jessica Castro. That's ILIA Jessica Castro, Castro. I'm working on my website right now. And
Okay.
yeah, that's it.
All right. Do you have any classes coming up, or you just kind of like put that on timeout for a little while?
No, I'm putting that on timeout
Yeah.
for a while just because,
There's
the
bigger
Lord
and
has
better
been
days
blessing
coming.
me.
You know what I'm saying?
The Lord has been blessing me. So, but you know what? I also think too, for me, and not to get on another topic, but as an educator, I'm really trying to understand what it is that I have and how I can use it to really help those that need it, um, and that want to receive it, more importantly.
Mhm.
Because as this industry changes, as things change, it's almost like, all right, how do I use what I have in my experience to really be able to get it through to this generation, or honestly, for not even this generation, for anybody who wants to receive it, you
Yo.
know? Um, I feel as if lately there's been like this, um, I don't know what to call it, but it's almost like I just have to step back and really understand what my role is as an educator and how do I want to um help.
Or expand your help. Because
Yeah,
I feel like
expand my
you
help.
played
Like,
a really important role. Yeah. Yeah, you played a really important role, especially in New York, the last few years. Um, and I could see how you wanna make it better, bigger, better, different. Yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
I respect that.
So yeah, that's
Time
how
out.
I answer that.
Time out for now. That's what's
Time out for now.
up. Well, yo, I really, really appreciate you. This will not be the last time I have you on. Um, and it's on record, so you could count on me for it. And yeah, I'm looking forward to see what else you have coming. I love to be able to witness the growth that I've seen. Even though you've been in the industry longer than me, I feel that throughout the years that I've been part of it, I've seen a lot of growth in you. So it's really, really
Yes.
a pleasure. It's really a pleasure to see that. And not just you, a lot of people. It's a pleasure to see that, from the outside. And uh, not having the misconception that we already made it because we've checked off like all of these boxes. It's like as these boxes are
Yeah.
checked off, new boxes are forming and appearing.
Exactly.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
no, I feel you, Sam, and I appreciate you saying that because right now on this new journey, as someone I always say the other side of the table, being part of the creative and this and that, I'm starting to learn who I am as a creative. I'm starting to understand my voice a little bit more and what it is that I want to put out there and how it is that I want to run the room. And I always think of myself as that dancer in the room and how is it that I want to make other dancers feel when they are in an environment with me, which is really important because that's what helped mold me as an artist. And how do I do that, for the rooms that I'm running now?
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, that's a big thing for me. So as I grow in this new um path journey, it's almost like how do I do it? How do I do it better? And how do I empower and how do I, just really find the my voice because I feel like right now I'm still trying to understand what that is,
yeah.
with everything with all the years that I've had in this business, it's almost like, all right, just what is it that you want to say now?
Hmm.
Now that you are able to say something, not that I wasn't before, but I was a part of everyone else's process, everyone else is creative. And it's almost like, all right, just what is it that you want to say right now?
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
know? So
Yeah.
I appreciate you, Samuel.
Word up. Word up. Yeah. So until next time, appreciate you, sis.